Because this is what happens when you, in 1918, the recommendations by a guy by the name of Rupert Blue, and Rupert Blue was the U.S. Public Health Service Surgeon General, civilian Surgeon General. He made 4 recommendations for the world. And since the United States was basically the leader in pharmaceutical development, even that far back, and in biological research, the 4 recommendations were to eat good food, to rest, to take quinines of salt, or salts of quinine, I should say, and also aspirin. Aspirin at that time was not known to have an adverse or let's call it an adverse relationship to influenza. What we now know is that the influenza is very temperature specific. It does not replicate unless that temperature is held at a certain level. Once the temperature of the body is raised to 101, the replication process is turned off. Aspirin is an antipyretic, that is, it lowers fever. And by lowering fever, you are causing the proliferation of the viral replication. And in fact, I'm beginning to believe, because I'm doing the research on the 1918 flu right now, that the majority of the deaths, not all, but the majority of them, were caused by lowering the fever. Because by lowering the fever, you were advancing the virus, causing a condition that damaged the lungs and led to bleeding in the lungs. By the way, aspirin causes bleeding too. By bleeding into the lungs, filling the lungs, the individual suffocated with pneumonia.
So aspirin was new on the scene then. How long had Bayer aspirin been on the market?
Bayer had been patented in this country in 1899. And in 1910, Congress approved it for a variety of medicinal compounding. And by 1917, 1918, it was readily available in Europe and United States. And as I said, the rest of the world was using the United States as the leader of what to do in the case of this pandemic flu. And they were recommending aspirin, because this is, in fact, a lot of the statistics were taken from pharmacies, because the people were filling the prescriptions and they were using the pharmacies as a basis to put together statistics, especially the mortality statistics.
And I'd like to just add that both Tamiflu and Relenza, the 2 antivirals that they push, both do exactly the same thing. They lower the body temperature.
So is the purpose of this pandemic flu to protect the people of this nation, or may it have something to do with the World Health Organization? It has to do with population reduction.
Well, for our viewers, we've actually got to, show the viewers in the past the Georgia Guidestones, where they can understand that people with money, enough money to buy granite, have granite surfaced, have it moved, engraved, and placed in this case, Georgia, okay? They have enough money to write that in stone. Whoever those people are, because they won't tell you who put those stones up. But they'll tell you the company that did them, the company that polished them, the company that engraved them. It's interesting what you say about the aspirin and the temperature, because one, it's fighting your body's natural immune system weapon, okay, by elevating your temperature. That's why humans get into fevers. The body's pretty good at keeping the body going. I want to jump in with the story, and that is, my grandfather was serving on the U.S.-Mexican border. First World War, 1918, remember the pandemic, the Spanish flu, which, by the way, started at a U.S. military base, just like 76, kind of strange, huh? Coincidental. Everything's coincidence. Nothing's a conspiracy, it's a coincidence.
Always.
But what I was going to say about my grandfather and what you had mentioned about the bear is, he was in the infirmary, everybody's sick. Okay, this is the Spanish flu, whatever they called that pandemic in 1918. And at the end of his bed, he took the papers and he changed his thing, got out of there, wrapped himself in blankets, and of all things, drank, I think, whiskey, and sweated out. That's what I wouldn't be here if he stayed. They've got him in tents. This is Texas, once again, military base. And the reason, we'll tell you later why he's guarding the borders and stuff. But to sweat it out. And it's funny that after you say that, what you just said, I'm like, because my mom always tells me the story. She says, yeah, if he didn't get out of that infirmary, okay, and he said, he goes, if I stay here, I'm going to die. Because everybody there's got that Spanish flu thing. And that was I'm told that was his cure, was to wrap himself in blankets, drink alcohol, and sweat it out. Now, I'm not recommending all the people do that, but, I'll be doing it later. I'm just kidding.
Well, you touched on something that I think it's important that we work in here before we wrap up, and that is that the body is miraculous at handling these things on its own. and generally with a good diet and exercise, and really not being deficient in any of the major vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that we require, we have everything that we need to take care of anything that pandemic legislation could possibly address.
Can I add something to this too? The management of flus, which I've done for 25 years, is simple. And in fact, in 1918, the homeopaths were losing less than 1% of their patients. And the ones they lost, in most cases, had been compromised by conventional pharmaceutical, well, aspirin in particular. And by being compromised, that created complications that were difficult to manage. But otherwise, the death rate amongst homeopaths was around 1%. The death rate among the allopathic treatment practitioners was in the ballpark of over 20%. Sometimes it's argued to be as high as 28%. There were only 2 remedies that were used throughout the world during 1918 flu. They're readily available at health food stores. The first and most important one was gelsemium. It's spelled Gelsemium. It's jasmine. That's what was used throughout the world. In addition, bryonia, which is wild hops. Bryonia is spelled Bryonia. Those 2 remedies were all that was necessary to treat the global pandemic influenza that supposedly killed in the ballpark of 30 million people.
Yeah. As we wrap this up, Rich, I just have, just for our viewers, so wherever you are out there, when you consider the Massachusetts pandemic law, the 4 bullet points that I pulled out of it that disturbed me. One was, if I was sick, they could come knocking on my door and drag me out of my house. Even if I said, guys, I don't feel that well, I'd like to stay home, I'm not feeling good. That was bullet point 1, Massachusetts pandemic law. Second thing was, they could enter my dwelling, and if they decided that my big screen TV could have been part of the infection, that they could take that with them. Not that they intend to and stuff, but as we give power to the state, they could take any of your possessions. And after they left with their possessions and dragged me out for that, what did you call it, quarantine thing or something? One of the other bullet points that bothered me was, on their way out the door, shutting it, they could use some accelerants, light it on fire, and destroy my dwelling. Now, I don't know about you and your dwellings, but you got to ask yourself, viewers, is this the power you want to give to the state based on hype, knowing history? That'd be my question for him.
And also, Dan, there's in this legislation creates zero liability for anything that they do, barring what they would call negligence, which of course is a bar that they can set at any level they
Very
want.
gray area, absolutely.
Once again, in '76, more people died of the vaccine than died of swine flu. And now, what? There'll be no lawsuit? Now you can't go after them? Is that what those people want?
I just want to mention one thing, because I mentioned a little bit earlier, and I know we're running out of time here, but the adjuvant squalene, Squalene. Squalene has been proven to be harmful when injected into a human's body. You can take it orally, you can rub it on your skin, everything's fine, but if you have it injected, your immune system sees it as an alien and attacks it. And the problem is that you have squalene all throughout your body. So once it identifies squalene as an intruder, your immune system actually starts attacking your entire body. This has been identified as being the major cause of Gulf War syndrome. And squalene is in the Glaxo H1N1 vaccine. We're not sure what else is in there, but we are sure aluminum, mercury, formaldehyde, and squalene. And
well, Dan, as you pointed out in the beginning of this show, they're really selling this hard. If they thought they could just roll it out and force it on everyone, they wouldn't be selling it as hard as they are. They know that we know our rights. Anyone can go on the web and look at the Massachusetts Constitution, Article 1. It's the Declaration of Rights. They cannot force this stuff on us. It's illegal for them to do so. So this is why they're trying to sell it so hard. It's very important that we educate ourselves about our rights as we roll into the end of the summer and the beginning of the fall. I don't think there are far too many people in society who are already afraid of vaccines. There are far too many people who will simply not obey an order to get a vaccine. And this could unravel the social order.
I'm one of them. You found one in this group.
Right, well, you probably found more than one, but that's the problem. They know they can't get away with it, and this is the point I made at the State House. If you do this and the social order breaks down because of resistance to it, whatever happens is going to be on your conscience, you as the legislator who voted for this thing.
Yeah.
So it won't work, it can't work trying to force it on us, and if they try and they make a mess of society, they're going to have to take responsibility for that.
Right. Good. Hey, to wrap this up, for you folks out there and happy, viewing land and stuff, as Rich said, not only do you have rights, but it's up to you to exercise them. Because they're on a piece of paper means nothing. You only have a right when you're willing to say no. So with that in mind, thanks for watching The Real Story. We'll come back and have better episodes for you as time goes on. It just gets better and better. And you're welcome to join us.